I was born in Lebanon, so I'm Lebanese. At the age of about 2 or so, my father decided to go to Canada to build a new life there, and then we came back. And no sooner did I arrive, the Civil War started. No one knows why, no one cares why, everybody was killing each other. Lebanon got split into two halves. One half were the Christian side and one half were the Muslim side. And they were all shooting at each other and killing each other. Well, we ended up in the wrong side.
Wow.
We lived there for 10 years in the wrong side. And remember, every time somebody killed a Muslim in one side, they find a Christian to kill in the Muslim side. And of course, there was a target on our back that entire time.
Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Islam is the topic of the day. Is it just another religion, or is this actually a global movement that has a pretty serious agenda? Ladies and gentlemen, we've watched over the past several years while many in the West have seemed like Islam is just a religion of peace, and they say, don't worry about it at all. But when you get into it, it looks like it might have an entirely different picture, one that involves conquest, unconditional surrender, and ultimately the elimination of all other religious beliefs in the world. Joining me to talk about this is I call him the Ray Comfort of England. He was born in Lebanon, grew up under civil war between Christianity and Islam, so knows it very well, has lived it out in his life. I hope he'll tell us a little bit about that. And he now directs an apologetic and evangelism ministry in Europe. Lives specifically in the UK, Mr. John Harris. John, thanks for hanging out today with me, buddy.
My good man, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks for coming all the way from the other side of the pond, as we say.
I would have traveled even further for you, Eric.
Man, his accent gives him 10 points IQ advantage automatically. Otherwise, I think we'd be tied, buddy. I got to be honest.
I have only my accent to support me on this. That's all I got.
You grew up, as we talk about Islam, this is very, not just intellectual for you, not only do you understand it and have studied it, this is very personal for you.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I lived in Lebanon first of all, I was born in Lebanon, so I'm Lebanese. At the age of about 2 or so years, my father decided to go to Canada to build a new life there. We followed him 6 months later. We stayed there for like 4 years, and then we came back. And no sooner did we arrive, the Civil War started. No one knows why, no one cares why, everybody was killing each other. And before you knew it, Lebanon got split into two halves. One half were the Christian side and one half were the Muslim side. And they were all shooting at each other and killing each other. Well, we ended up in the wrong side.
Wow.
We lived there for 10 years in the wrong side. And remember, every time somebody killed a Muslim in one side, they find a Christian to kill in the Muslim side. And of course, there was a target on our back that entire time in the Muslim area. So it was a pretty miserable, dangerous place to live in. And of course, they don't actually have to find out whether they don't care whether you're a real Christian or not. They don't care whether you're born again Christian or not. They just need to know that you have a Christian name. If you have a Christian name,
your name's John.
And no Muslim is called John.
Oh, man.
So my mom if she could literally just called my name we had a balcony. We were sort of in one of those flats, and we were first floor. If my mom would just to call out my name in front of, say, somebody who's got a gun, and they all had guns and machine guns. If she just called out my name, they would know I'm a Christian, and they will come and get us.
They would literally
shoot you right on the spot. She could not call out for me. So, and of course she's doubly scared because there are gunmen around me. So she wants to call me to take me into safety or bring me into safety. And of course she can't call my name. Wow. And that's how we lived for 10 years. If we went to school, if we went to the Muslim side of school, well, of course they know your name. I remember once going there, it only lasted one day. One guy found out my name is John. He said, fine, I'll see you tomorrow when my whole army of people, I'm going to come in and kill you. Of course, that was the last day I went. If we went to the Christian side of school, we have to cross the line where all the snipers are. So either snipers or killers, you can choose your pick.
Gee whiz,
that is not entirely a very good environment to live in. For 10 years, that's how we lived for 10 years.
That's going to shape your psyche, man. That's like, I praise, you're a brilliant apologist. You just did the Evangelism Summit with us here in Pensacola. And thank you, by the way, that people looked at that and went, wow, this guy knows his stuff. Do you think that environment forced you to think harder and reason better and really understand like there's no room for error when you're living like that?
I was going to say, you either know your stuff or you die. I mean, everything is at risk here. And you get to learn stuff very quickly. You can't, over here you learn it out of necessity because you want to help other people. But there you learn it out of necessity because you want to save your life. You're going to survive. Wow. So we had friends, of course, I had friends which we were close with. But forever, they have kind of this thing in the background saying, well, we've got a Christian here we can kill if the time comes or if it's suitable for them or something like that. I mean, it was really that dangerous. It wasn't safe at all. But even if snipers didn't get you and somebody didn't kidnap you to kill you, you got the bombs that are falling all around you. And that was on a permanent basis. I remember once a bomb falling every 3 seconds nearby where I lived.
You're just hearing boom,
boom,
boom.
Every 3 seconds. I was counting. Boom. I was actually saying 1, 2, 3, and a bomb falls, and another one, all the way through the night. And listen to this. When bombs fall, you hear people screaming because somebody's injured. And then you hear people screaming to help the injured. And then you hear another bomb. Now the people who are helping are now the injured, and now they need helpers. And that went on throughout the whole night because they're taking people to hospital all the way through the night. Wow. So, not a great place to be at.
No. So that brings up one of the reasons I wanted you on the show. Yes. Do people realize the agenda, the objective of Islam? Because it's portrayed as, oh, it's just a religion of peace. Oh, I want the truth here, okay? We may get censored on some platforms. Right. We'll take the video off that, and it can't be there. Sorry if it's not on those certain platforms. But I want the truth about what's really going on because I think there's a lot of people who are naive in the world about what's actually happening.
It is. There is, unfortunately, this problem. And I've got to tell you, it's not just non-Muslims who don't know what Islam teaches. Muslims don't know what Islam teaches. And of course, when you get the fundamentalists who's going out there killing people, these are the people who are reading the Quran. These are the people who know what the Quran is saying. The ones who are westernized and modernized and don't read the Quran, they think it's all full of peaceful stuff. And of course, there are some peaceful phrases in there, but what they don't know is that these peaceful phrases appeared in the beginning of Muhammad's ministry, which means that they had, they were commanded to live peacefully because they couldn't win. But the moment they were able to win, they were given new commandments or new revelations, which allowed them to go out there and subjugate. So kill and subjugate. And people don't know that. I mean, it's probably worse than that because some Muslims who know about this deliberately conceal this information. And it's just not helpful for anybody because everybody has this one understanding of the Islam, but actually in the background, there's some other understanding or some other readings in the Quran that people are ignoring. There is a whole surah, Surah 9, a whole surah dedicated for what to do with people who are Christians, Jews, and also people are hypocrites, Muslim hypocrites. That's why when they go out there blowing people up, sometimes Muslims die. And they say, well, these are hypocrites. And the Quran says, kill the hypocrite.
So you're allowed to kill your own people of Islam if they're not as extreme as you in doing what you're doing?
If they're not following the teaching. Okay. And of course, they're considered hypocrites. And that's why they would say, well, they should die too. Because the Quran in Surah 9 literally tells you the polytheist, the Christian, the Jew, and the hypocrite must die. Wow. But of course, people don't read the Quran like we read the Bible, right? First of all, it's in Arabic, right? Second of all, the translation, sometimes it's all messed up. I've got this booklet that I've done to show some of the bad translations in there.
This is great, by the way. You got to tell people about this.
Yes.
You want to go ahead and talk about it real quick? Because this is really, really cool.
Let's do this really quick.
This is amazing what he's done here.
You see, the thing is, first of all, you want to reach a Muslim. You want to be able to communicate with them. And sometimes you don't know what to say. And sometimes you don't have something to give them. So I thought I'll come up with what I would consider the perfect booklet that you can just give out to everybody. Because first of all, it looks like an Islamic booklet. So if you look at it at the front,
it does.
It literally says, it literally looks like an Islamic booklet. It's got Islamic writing on it, and that's deliberate. And it says why Muslims reject Christianity. And this is written in a very neutral way. So you wouldn't know whether a Muslim or a Christian has written this. It just simply says, this is why Muslims reject Christianity. And it starts going through all the objections that every Muslim would go through when you meet one. It's like unavoidable. If you meet a Muslim today who's half clued up on what their religion teaches, this is literally the sequence by which they would go through.
They'll literally ask these questions right here. Boom, 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 boom.
And
so Christians could get this too to help them. Once you understand this, it's for Muslims to get them. So this is like a secret, a backdoor path to get to Muslims is what you're doing.
Yeah, it is totally a backdoor path. It literally, it's attractive to them because they think, which is true, by the way, it tells them why they must reject Christianity or why they do reject Christianity. But in this booklet, it's literally giving all the answers that the Christian would give, as if it's cluing up, as in giving advice to the Muslim, what he's going to be facing. So imagine this booklet is two very clued up people, a Muslim and a Christian. And they're arguing with each other.
Who's really going to win here?
They're arguing with each other.
Beautiful.
So, but when the Muslim is reading it, he's reading it from a Muslim point of view. And when the Christian is reading it, he could read it from a Christian point of view. This is how to answer them. I even give the wrong answers. Because many Christians give wrong answers. And I tell the Muslim how to respond to the wrong answers.
Purposely, because you're going to literally take them down a path.
Absolutely. So they're going through a journey with this. This is what makes this amazing. So the Muslim finds out what all the real answers are that Christians should be giving. Because they start asking, where did Jesus say, I'm God, worship me? And then I answer the question as if the Christian doesn't know how to answer the question. And then the Muslim...
Which the average Christian doesn't know how to answer the question.
And the moment he doesn't know how to answer the question, the Muslim is told to accuse the Christian of not following the Bible properly because clearly Jesus is not God and he's believing it because he can't defend it. But then I say, well, this is what a clued up Christian would say.
So so you're almost warning them, hey, here's what somebody who doesn't know might say, but just be aware, here's what somebody who really knows what they're talking about is going to say.
Yeah, and I give deadly answers. I mean, there's no way out.
This is great.
And then what happens is, this is exactly what happens. If you communicate with a Muslim and you get that far, now the Muslim is going to go straight for, you can't trust the Bible because it's corrupt. Okay, so I'm showing the Christian where he's heading, but I'm also as if telling the Muslim where to go.
Yes.
Because they do it anyway. I'm just showing him what he does anyway. And then I give the answer that Christians would give that's not very convincing. And then I tell the Muslim, see, this is how you respond if they get the wrong answer. But then a clued up Christian would give you this answer and it's deadly.
You can't make that argument. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done after a Christian goes here.
And then if he gets that far, then you have to go for the Trinity, or you have to go for, they invented the Trinity during the Council of Nicaea, or they invented the Bible during the Council of Nicaea. And then I give the answer that the clued up Christian would do. Yeah, give the real answer to that. And then the last thing that happens is the Muslim goes ahead and says, well, it's unfair that Jesus, an innocent man, will die for a guilty person. It's not fair. I mean, think about it morally. I mean, you wouldn't go out and pay the penalty of somebody else's guilt. See, you Christians have that. And then I show them how in Islam they have that totally. And that it's not unfair. I mean, I'd love to take you through it very quickly about how to point out how the Christian theology actually does not contradict their understanding of how a penal substitution would work.
That's fantastic.
Because they've got a verse in the Quran that says, no bearer of burden can bear the burden of another. That means no sinner can pay the sin of somebody else. Okay, now think about it. I'm going to keep repeating it until the penny drops. The Quran literally says, no bearer of burden can bear the burden of another. So therefore, it is unfair for Jesus to bear the burden of somebody else. If
he had his own burden.
If he had his own
sin.
And what does Jesus have? What kind of burden does Jesus have?
He doesn't have any. He's never sinned.
No, Jesus never sinned. And of course, the Quran says that Jesus is pure. Surah 19:19 is pure without sin. So now
even the
Quran, it's saying no bearer of burden. It's not saying nobody can pay for your sin. It says no sinner can pay for another sinner.
And yet the Quran teaches that Jesus was not a sinner.
Without sin.
Yeah, that's what I find fascinating, because when you really get into this, you find that somehow this book, and if you're a Muslim out there, I encourage you to check this out. But here's what I believe really happened, and maybe you could enlighten me better on this. It seems like God made it so that Satan had to put the truth in there, and if you wanted to find it, you can find it.
You know, very rarely you come to a false religion where the devil has done such a bad job that backfires on him big time. It's like...
And yet in Islam, that's exactly what's happening.
Exactly what's happened. It's backfired on the Muslim. You see, the irony, this is the beauty of this one. When I get to that point where I'm explaining the bearer of burden, that Jesus is no bearer of burden, and I talk about hadith in here as well and everything, this is to help the Christian as much as it is to help the Muslim,
Right.
Then it gives me a pure and beautiful it's a stepping stone to the gospel. Because now I'm explaining what Jesus did, and that's how I finish the booklet.
Wow.
And then I invite them to make the right decision.
Wow.
That's how the booklet changes. But if you thought that was the part that was amazing, which of course it is, because that's the gospel, and nothing is more amazing than that. But because it's got Islamic verses on it, the Quran on it, right from the start, and the Quran is revered in Islamic culture. That means you can't put the Quran on the floor, you can't throw it in the bin.
So you give this to somebody, the fact that it has Quran on it,
And it's got it inside and on the front.
they can't throw it away.
That's it.
They have to hold it.
They can't throw it because it's Quran verses. It's holy scripture for them. So this is like deadly. Once it arrives in their hands and they realize what they're looking at, they can't throw it away. How could they?
Wow.
It can't go in the bin. That's blasphemy. So this booklet is the ultimate booklet that actually leads, hopefully, that helps the Christian and it helps the Muslim to come to truth.
No, Living Waters was very, very impressed when you did this. You guys actually printed a lot of these to make available.
Yes.
They're available at our website, creationtoday.org. In England, they're available at livingwaters.eu.
EU.com.
Livingwaters.eu.com because they're complicated. And then at Living Waters United States, which is livingwaters.com.
Yes.
So,
And
Wow.
we sold more of those booklets than any other booklet within the short period of time that we produced them. Look, everywhere you go nowadays,
yeah.
you're meeting
Now,
Muslims.
okay, this-
yeah, you admit.
can
Yeah,
I
I
tell
know
the
what you're going to
story?
say. Yes.
So you get here a couple weeks ago to do the Evangelism Summit. We got a couple days, and you're like, how many people do you encounter on the streets that are, Islam, that practice Islam, that are Muslim? And I said, you won't really see that here on the streets very much. We go out. The first 3 guys we talked to, this is exactly where they're. And by the way, you took them through it. Can you? We might as well. I don't know. What all were you going to talk about? Because I want to talk about this, but
Forget what I'm going to talk
forget
about.
it. That was a beautiful conversation. We stopped them, gave them a track, started talking to them, and then immediately we found out because I said, oh yeah, they said they're going to heaven. And I was like, so does everybody get in? If you're Muslim, do you get in? And they're like, oh, we're Muslim. I was like, oh, and immediately you're right there. You just went. I couldn't believe how strategically your words were that avoided the pitfalls, avoided the landmines, so to speak, and and within minutes, they understood the gospel. And one of them, and I want you to go through it, one of them goes, well, then what do we do? He literally asked, well, then what do we do? He understood his problem and asked, what must I do to be saved? That's literally what he's asking.
Exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you do this well, you can do it in the street like you saw me do. That was exactly what I do, by the way. It's every time the same, which we need to talk about because we want Christians to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because there is a way you talk to a Muslim that you don't talk to some other group of people, right? Or atheist or JW or Mormon. You have to talk in a certain way. So what is that certain way and how do you get them to the gospel? That's the important thing. Now, I know people who do it badly, which is where you start challenging their beliefs. You're challenging the Quran, it's scientifically not accurate, or you challenge Muhammad being immoral, or you challenge something else. Please, none of that is important. Once their eyes are opened with the gospel, all of that is nonsense.
Wow.
They'll come to the
They'll
gospel.
see it.
And we need to do that. We need to show people how to do it because we're going to meet a lot of Muslims in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to get to that, the big picture of what's happening. But go through this.
Yeah, afterwards we went out for we went to Chick-fil-A. I mean, you weren't there at this time, but I went out to Chick-fil-A, and I'm still thinking. Eric said there are no Muslims here, right? I walk in, there's a Muslim family one place, there's another Muslim family another. I think you're not seeing them. Because your perception is, well, the Pensacola or whatever area, no Muslim. Yeah. But I'm assuring you, if they're not there already, they will be there and they will take over the world like they plan to do.
So they're trying to.
They are.
And and by the way, that is their goal, right?
It is. That is their vision. That is how their religion advances. And they're willing to do it telling the truth or a lie. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know if you knew that in Islam there is the concept of telling a lie. It's called taqiyya, which means you can outright lie to advance the religion. You can say whatever you want. It is halal to you to lie in that way. Or you practice kitman. That means you avoid giving information in order for you to look good in terms of what you believe. Like, for example, a Muslim could say, jihad means only personal struggle. That means he is avoiding telling you what jihad really means. Look, let me tell you something, right? This is really funny. Jihad, when I was in Lebanon, nobody understood jihad as being a personal struggle.
Yeah, you knew exactly what jihad
was. It's foolishness. Anyone in Europe, anyone in the Western world who says jihad is a personal struggle, ChatGPT, try it. It tells you personal struggle. It's complete and utter nonsense. I lived in Lebanon for 10 years. I lived with the Islamic community. No one refers to it as that. They refer to it as somebody who would literally commit suicide to kill somebody else, or usually the Christians or the Jews. That's jihad. You go and die for your belief. No one calls it personal. I bet you there are a lot of Muslims out there laughing their heads off because they fooled the European and the Western world. All this nonsense they come up with. Like, for example, they tell you Islam is a religion of peace. Well, the word Islam doesn't mean peace. I was even arguing with ChatGPT about this because ChatGPT came up with saying, no, Islam is a religion of peace because it comes from the word salam, and therefore Islam is the root word. I said, that's nonsense. I can speak Arabic. Can you stop being politically correct and tell me exactly what it means? He said it means surrender, submission. It is unbelievable that even ChatGPT has been adjusted and reprogrammed to come up with nonsense answers. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means submission. And that means everybody must submit. That is why they call Jesus a Muslim, because he submitted to God. That is why they call Moses a Muslim, because he submitted to God. There are ways to completely destroy that argument. Of course, we can talk about it if you want. But submission is basically what it is. And everyone who submits to God is a Muslim. Therefore, do you submit to God, Eric?
So I would say yes.
You're a Muslim. There you go. Muslim right there. But there is a way to rebuttal that. And we really should talk about all these little bits and pieces.
We're going to be here for a little while then. All right, buckle your seatbelt, guys. This is going to be fun. Let's go ahead and get into all of it.
Yes. Now, what do you have in mind? Which path do you want to go down?
So I'm first thinking that I think the booklet first, would that be good? Because it's talking us through what people will say and what they should say instead, because these are what you're going to get. We are going to be faced with more and more people, more and more Muslims challenging Christianity. And let's face it, most Christians aren't well-versed, and certainly aren't well-versed enough to really understand and be able to defend the truth of Christianity against a Muslim. So, which is sad. I tell people all the time, if you want to learn your faith, go share your faith. Because if you share your faith, you have to defend your faith. And when you defend your faith, you have to learn your faith. So go do evangelism, and it will help you learn your faith. I promise you.
I'm going to tell you, if you don't learn stuff and you go out there to share your faith and you meet a Muslim, it's a suicide mission.
Yeah, wow.
They'll gut you in a corner in 2 minutes. Literally, they could tell you a few things and you wouldn't know. And there are a lot of people I know who actually collapsed right from the first question. Like, is Jesus God? Yes, he is. We believe that he is God. And he said, where did he say that? Where did he say, I am God? Where did he say, worship me? Now, if you don't know how to reply to that, because Eric, you and I both know, there is nowhere in Scripture, by Jesus' words himself, his own words, that he is God himself.
The red letter words you won't find.
You won't find.
I am God.
I am God, or I am worthy of worship, or worship me. You just wouldn't find it. So he sets you up immediately. You can't find the answer. He tells you you're a bad Christian. Therefore, why don't you come to our side where we got it right? This is what the booklet does, by the way.
It's teaching the Muslim to do this to the Christian.
Yeah, or pointing out to the Christian, that's what the Muslim is going to do to you.
Exactly.
So this is like a dual purpose. So what then I do is come up with something like 8 or 9 reasons why we believe Jesus is God. And the way I do it in the booklet, which you can do with a Muslim, but you can read it if you wanted to. By the way, there's an index at the back, which helps you find each one of the questions. Points. So basically, the reason we believe Jesus is God, because he's done and said some things that only God would do, right? If I wanted to say I am God, and if I said to you, I am God, and I'm living in a Muslim environment, he wouldn't believe me. He would say, what do you mean you're God? We believe in Allah. Why you have to say I am Allah or something like that, right? But if you wanted to point out, if you want to show them, show
Reveal,
them, if you want to show them that you're God, you do things that only God can do. So Jesus did, for example, Mark chapter 2, he literally said, your sins, I forgive you, stand up and walk. What did people around him
only
say?
God can forgive.
Only
sins.
God can forgive. And everybody around him, who's this man who thinks he can do that? Only God can do that. Did Jesus declare he is God? Yes, because he said that. Even they said, oh, who is this man to do that? Or in John 10, when he would go around saying, I'm the good shepherd, and no one can snatch them out of my hand, pointing out to Ezekiel 34. Remember, he's talking to the Jews, right? So they know that Yahweh said that I'm a good shepherd, that he is the good shepherd. This is, by the way, Jesus declaring that he is good.
Right.
That's another thing we have with Muslims that say Jesus rejected his goodness by saying no one is good but God. You remember he said that in Mark chapter 10.
And he's going, I am the good shepherd. I
am the good shepherd. Then he says, no one can snatch them out of my hand. What kind of power do you need to have to make a promise like that? Infinite power for all time, for everywhere. That is him declaring his omnipotence. And then he would go around and then he would make all these claims, and then they want to throw stones at him because he says, we throw these stones because you claim to be God.
It's blasphemy because you are claiming to be God.
But of course it goes on and on and on. And the way I do it in this booklet, because a Muslim can never see it, I show them a Quranic verse that says, only God can forgive sins, or only God can do certain things, or he has all power. And then in John 16, Jesus says, I have overcome the world. How can you overcome the world? What prophet can say, I have overcome the world? That's ridiculous. Only God can say that. And I show in the Quran that Allah said he does that. But now Jesus is saying it. Is he declaring he's God? Of course he is. And Jesus said, the disciples said to him, now we know you know all things. Omniscience. Jesus didn't deny it. He said yes. And then he would continue saying the time will come when, etc., and affirm the fact that he knows all things. So 7 or 8 points like that. By the way, some of those arguments would work also for JWs, right? So for example, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 17, 18, it says, Jesus declares that he is the first and the last. He declares he is the first and the last. It's read in red letters. And then you would stop there and you would ask the Muslim to say, this person who just spoke said he's the first and the last. Who's the first and the last? They would say Allah. Well, look, it says, I died and I rose again. Therefore, now it's Jesus. Of course, in Revelation 22, he moves on to say, I'm the Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end.
Jesus obviously declaring it with what he did and what he said.
All things. This is his own words. Remember, we're not looking for Paul or Peter or James to tell us. We're looking for his own words. And this kind of thing blows people's mind. Oh, how about worship me? I'm going to tell you this, right? I went to a place in the UK, and a Muslim, where it's full of Muslims, and a Muslim came to me, and he did to me exactly what every Muslim would do. He said, nowhere did he say, worship me. And I said, in John chapter 5, verse 22 and 23, he says, you should honor me the way you should honor the Father. Now tell me, how do we honor God? Because God the Father, Jesus said, honor me the way you honor the Father. How do we honor God? Well, you worship him, you pray to him, you live for him, you praise him. And he said, you know what he did? He blocked his ears. And he said, no, he didn't, and walked away. And I said, come back, I've got some more.
Wow, he did not want to hear the truth.
He did not know it's there, and he did not want to hear the truth. But of course, if I was the average Christian,
right,
I wouldn't have been able to do it.
You're not able to do it.
Now, it's all in the booklet.
I was to say, so guys, you guys need to get this booklet, okay? This is powerful because it's not only that one, it's several other questions. You just gave me some when you got here a couple weeks ago, so excited about that. Why Muslims reject Christianity? Where did Jesus say I'm God? The problem with the question, where does the Bible teach that Jesus is divine? Where does Jesus expect or demand worship? The Bible must be corrupt. The Bible manuscripts aren't trustworthy. Is the Quran perfectly preserved? You really are. This is exactly what they're going to go through.
This is like a book. But I call it a booklet. So you're literally giving them a book to read, but it's in the form of booklet. It's really cheap, so I can give them in mass, give them out in mass.
Get a hold of one of these or multiple of these so you can pass these out. Again, available at creationtoday.org, livingwaters.com, livingwaterseu.com, all those places. Because honestly, I'm praying for a great awakening because, well, and I got to let social media go. I'm so sorry. I'm out of time for our social media. This has been really, really good, though. Can we go into, when we're off social media, can we go into like the reality of what's taking place in the Muslim world?
Yes.
Because it's if you really understood what was taking place, you wouldn't be ignorant. Like, you would see the world very differently than most people see it today.
Yes.
You would understand this war that's actually taking place is really, well, we'll talk about that. I don't want to get censored here. We'll talk about that after the break when we're with our social media,
Yes.
our off social media. Hey guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us for this program. I love having conversations like this with experts they've been there, done that. They know their stuff, and they can here equip us and disciple us. That's what we're all about. What we do as a ministry at Creation Today is we invite you, partner with us to share the gospel around the world, and you can have access to every conversation we've ever had. You get access to everything we do. Our small group curriculums, our movies, our small group guides, our Bible studies, the Creation Today shows. If you want more information on that, go over to creationtoday.org/partner, and your partnership will just give you, by helping us spread the gospel, you get access to everything we do. Love it. Hey, see you next week, next Wednesday. And until then, would you please go share the gospel with somebody who needs to hear it? Maybe you want to share it with a Muslim. Tell me about it in the comments. God bless you guys.